we went to service call this morning, and we got back, and 7830. This outfit has 3 or 4 of these tractors. Anyway, they brought this one over because it was Deere rating for some reason or another, and parked it here yesterday. And then the one that replaced it, they were going to put in its place to do the job. Well, it had problems this morning. They went to hook it up to an implement, and the hitch wouldn't raise on it. So Oscar's wanting in the truck. Come on, Bubba, get in there. Lulu. It's a lot warmer in the office, ding dong. But if that's where you want to be, that's where we'll put you guys. Okay. They love their truck. Anyway, so went over there and looked at it. Spent about 4 hours messing with wiring and testing things. And long story short, there's a bunch of controllers back here. And on that one, we were checking the power supplies. There's 3 connectors on the HCU SCU controller. And when I'm talking about a controller, it's a control module that runs the hitch, and that runs the SCVs here. And if you don't know what SCVs are, selective control valve. This is HCU, hydraulic control unit. The HCU would be the module, the hydraulic control unit. Anyway, so we had power to all the wires. There was, like, on the X2 plug, there was 4 wires that were supposed to have battery voltage on it, and the X3 plug. And if you had an SFA transmission, which we didn't, we had an IVT, there were 2 wires that were not on the X1 plug that were not there because it didn't have an SFA transmission. Anyway, we had power on all those, and then we got to the ground, and I had, like, all the grounds, I was getting like 51 ohms of resistance. I said, that's not right. You know, we were going to this nice shiny bolt here, and so I pulled another plug off another controller behind it that had a different ground source to it, and I checked ground to it, and it had, you know, like 1 ohm. I said, well, that's what we want. So anyway, there's a splice, John Deere calls it a splice connector, and this is where all the grounds come in right here. There's a W1, which is the big wire, and all it is, this little junction block, it's got a row of spades in it that are all tied together, and it just ties all the grounds together to the controllers. Well, there was nothing wrong with this. So somewhere between here and the wires run back up through here to the controllers, the wires were not right, okay? And I remember telling Marco this. I said, man, I've had these happen before. I've had the resistance, high resistance, and we fixed the grounds, and it took the controllers out because of the high resistance. And sure as hell, so we had to run a new wire. We just ran a new ground wire up the loom from the splice connector, and we ran it to, there was 3 wires on the X2 plug and 1 wire. We had to branch it off and make 4 different wires, 4 different grounds for those pins. We cut the wires back from where the original pins were and spliced into them. Well, anyways, we had, you know, good continuity there, good ground, we had good power supply, and it was still throwing the code. And I said, the controller's bad. So we went over to one of the other tractors. There's, I think tractor number, this is 7830 number 1. The one that was broke down there, the hitch, was number 2. We went to number 3. We pulled the HCU controller off, went over there, and the code was gone, and the hitch raised right up. And I said, there you go. So what is kind of funny about that whole situation is that here I am on this one, and it has VGT actuator power supply code, and then the other code is that the VGT actuator is not reaching the expected position. Well, we got more than one problem here. For one thing, either the turbo is locked up, or the actuator's locked up, because you should be able to take this control linkage right here and move it. And I knew there was something wrong when I turned the key on and I didn't hear the VGT actuator cycle. But there's also a problem with the power. It's not the power supply, but the ground. What's kind of funny about that is that it's got about 50 ohms of resistance on the ground. So it looks like we're going to have to fix 2 problems. So this alternator's grounded good. I got 45 ohms of resistance. That's too much. So the next thing I need to do here on this turbo actuator is let's figure out whether it's the actuator or the turbo that's seized up. So what we need to do is take, I'm trying to remember which one I took off. I think I took this Allen head out here and slipped it off the shaft, and then I could tell whether it was the actuator. I can't remember. And I left my phone in there charging. I don't remember if I took that one or this one out. I don't remember. I think I took this one off. Yeah, I took that one off there and slid it off the shaft if I remember right. No, that ain't gonna slide sideways like that, is it? I had to have taken this one out. Let me see if I can find something to get this bolt out here. Okay. Get this bolt. I don't know if that's going to slide sideways enough to get that off of there. Hopefully it's just the actuator, not the turbo. So far it's looking like the actuator. Yeah. Okay, so here's what I'm talking about, guys. See, the arm here is moving on the turbo back and forth just fine. So, needs a new actuator. So let me call the clowns and get a new actuator for it before they close. Wait a second, it's past 5. I'm done. I can't order it till tomorrow morning. But anyway, on these actuators, just you know, unplug the power supply here. I need to find out why got a bad ground here going to this actuator, so I got to get the service manual out and find the ground on it, and maybe I'll do that and see if I can find that before it gets dark on me. But I'll pull that actuator off in the morning because I probably won't even drain the coolant. I'll just pull the line off and put a plug in it right here. And there should be an inlet and an outlet to that. So there's the water going in it. Where's the water coming out of it at? I don't remember why we changed this hose for some reason at one time or another. There's got to be another hose on that thing if I remember right. There's got to be an inlet and an outlet on it. Yeah, here's the other one right here. That makes a little more sense. But we'll pull this heat shield off here, or we can get our hand up in there and pull that off. Pull that line off, and we'll just cap both lines. We might lose a little bit of antifreeze, and then we'll change out the actuator on it. Hey guys, so it's a continuation of the VGT problem here, the 7830. So anyway, I finally took about a week to get this VGT actuator. That wire's rubbing on that turbine speed sensor. Look at that. They must have been down inside that clamp. I just noticed that. We'll get to wrap some tape or something around that. Anyway, it took about a week to get this VGT actuator. So when the strike first started going on at Deere, we didn't have any problems because all of the non-union warehouses across the country had inventory. Well, now that inventory has pretty well been depleted, from what I've been told. And now they're pretty much relying on the main hub, which is Milan, Illinois. And they're kind of running off a skeleton crew because the rest of the meatheads are on strike. So, anyway, finally got this VGT actuator. I'm still waiting on parts for the 48455. I got a bunch of stuff in today, but it wasn't we've been having quite a lot of rain here lately. Let's see here. This is the belts and some gaskets for the 4455. I'm sure this is going to be head gasket. And this is more than likely going to be, what is this? I don't know. I'm not sure. It's got to be like the pan gasket, I'm guessing. What do we got here? Okay, this tractor here actually, hitch and SCV controller. That goes to this tractor. DZ, that is going to be the actuator. I'm just looking at the part number. Yep, actuator. The outfit that was remanning those actuators, I'm not sure what's in this sack here. You can't get the reman ones, which is fine with me because they're a piece of shit anyway. Those must be bearings or something. I'm not sure there. I've got sacks and sacks and sacks of parts for this 4455. But let's get out the controller. I'll put the VGT actuator in this tractor, and then they're going to have to have Deere come over and program the controller for it. And if you're wondering, Marco is pretty well mechanically inclined. He's one thing that's probably a detriment to me, but it helps them, which is fine. I've got plenty of work. You know, some guys don't like the ranch mechanics hanging around them when they work on stuff because they don't want them to know the tricks of the trade, and they don't want to teach them anything, so that way they can always go over there for every little call that they get, you know. And I don't mind teaching them guys how to do some of those things themselves. So Marco over the years has actually turned out to be a fairly decent mechanic. You know, pretty good actually. He's learned a lot from being around, I think, from being around me. And so a lot of that stuff he does himself. He's kind of jack of all trades over there. He runs the equipment, he loads hay trucks, he bales, he hauls hay, he does pretty much everything, and he'll work on a lot of the equipment for them, and a lot of the major stuff, and stuff that needs a scan tool and stuff like that, they'll have to call me like this, you know. But I don't mind doing it. I've got so much work that I don't really care, you know, if he does a lot of that little stuff, you know, figuring it out. Okay, that being said, we've got to put this on, and man, that sucker's still on. VGT actuator should turn. I'm not sure which way. Okay. Alright, that one turns. This is supposedly the controller. There was a part number on that hitch controller that I gave them, and they said the part number wasn't any good. Which is kind of odd, but I think there's probably, I don't know if there's a core on this or what. There is the controller. Hydraulic controller. It says the same exact thing as the other one does on it. Well, I think the other one actually has another deal that says SCU up here, but it's a multi-task controller. It does the hitch, and it does the SCVs, or all that good stuff. So anyways, all we can basically do on that is screw it on there. There ain't a whole lot else we can do with that. But here's our new VGT controller, because the other one is actually locked up. Now when I came out here the other day, I had two problems, because I had two different codes on this thing. I had the one that the VGT actuator was not meeting the desired position. It's because it's actually locked up solid. And then the other code was that the power supply was bad on it to the controller. And why am I seeing... I don't know if I'm understanding that. This one's got 4 wires in the plug-in on it. whereas this one here has only 3 wires in the plug-in on it. Huh. Well, wait a second. I'm looking at the wrong end there, moron. Okay, I'm wrong. The end I need to be looking at's there. So anyway, we got to cut this zip tie, unplug that. We can go ahead and unplug that. But anyway, on that, what I was talking about is I had, this is the power 12-volt supply. This is the ground. Well, I had 50 or 45 ohms or something like that. You'll probably see it in the video, but and I came back the next day. We're going to check it again, but I came back the next day because I got busy and I thought, well, we'll order the actuator. And I came back the next day to trace down the high resistance on the ground circuit, and I didn't have high resistance anymore. It had like 0.002 ohms. So whatever happened, we're going to check it again though to make sure. There's got to be a problem somewhere. It's probably going to come back and bite me in the butt, but we got to take this little bracket loose here, get the VGT actuator. We got to basically separate the turbine speed sensor wire from the VGT actuator harness. And then I got to get some flat flay storing plugs so I can block off. I'm not draining the water. I'm just going to pull it off real fast and plug it. So let me get my ducks in a row here. Pull this charger coolant line off here so it'll make it a little bit better to get this one coolant line going to the actuator off back here. Missing in the bracket there. I'm gonna need to find a bolt sticking that. Okay, we're after this hose right here. We're gonna lose a little bit of antifreeze. I think I might have the right size plug lined out, maybe. Lay this maybe in a convenient location to get her swapped out before I lose too much water. I don't know. It might be the next size up. Let me see what size wrench we got here. You know, I need to call the Snap-on guy and have him get me the adapter to go to these tanks for my vacuum puller, because I could probably pull a vacuum on this to do this a little bit better and not hardly lose any coolant at all. I'm having a heck of a time here. This thing's about ready to... Gotta lay something over this heat shield. It's cutting my wrist. I think it's kind of hard to get to. What the fuck was that? Alright, we're gonna lose a little water here, so. Alright, that ain't too bad. That ain't too bad at all. And that's gonna be the smaller size that I originally got out, but their wall thicknesses are a little bit different in my plug. That's what threw me off. Just plug that off there, and then basically do the same exact thing on the other side. I'll probably just leave this screwdriver here. I don't foresee myself needing it. This other side. Walk over there with the stool and pull this one loose. We'll have to swap the fittings over, put them in this one. I'll have to put you up here for now. those fittings right there. Shouldn't be hardly any water. It would have to come uphill, so I don't foresee much water coming out of this one at all. Never know though. No, there shouldn't be hardly anything coming out of this one here. Probably no sense in capping this one right now, but you know, I guess it'll keep it from dripping on whatever's left in the actuator all over the damn place. Okay, so I gotta cut this tie or something here. It's got one of those special, I see, it's got one of those special grommets in there. I gotta get a 10 millimeter and pull the actuator off, and a 13 millimeter. Alright, let's go ahead and pull the bracket. Find out where to set you guys at. I don't really know. Let's pull this bracket off. I'm gonna have to fix that turbine speed sensor wire while we're here. Somebody's spinning their tires somewhere. Well, I kind of was a little bit premature on that one. Hanging up on here. This one's zip tied to this wire probably somewhere. I'm not seeing. Yeah, it's zip tied. That's what's hanging me up. This is the original actuator on this tractor, so this one did pretty good actually. Okay, so pretty straightforward here, guys. We just got to swap some fittings over. And we got to fix that one wire, wrap some electrical tape around it or something. But just make sure they're like for like when you lay them down, which it appears they are. So we'll have to take that fitting, that 45, and caulk it pretty much the same. And then the one on the back is pretty well straightforward. It's a straight one. But I'm going to get some electrical tape and fix that turbine speed sensor wire. I don't know if you've seen that. Here is the turbine speed sensor wire. You can see where it's been rubbing and the insulation's gone on it. So we'll fix that while we're here. Alright. I really wanted to go out to Don Polk's. You remember that 8430? We did the 50 series engine conversion. I still haven't ever made it back over there to finish that. You know, so I was gonna go this weekend, but the weather was kind of being a little bit of a deterrent for me on that whole thing. So I might do it this week. I'm gonna make up my mind what I'm gonna do on that. Actuator rod through the holes. What do here? There we go. Hold your mouth just right. he used his 9300. I rebuilt the PTO on his 9300 so he could pull his big baler with it and until we get the 8430 project done. Would have had it done last, I don't know how many months, 6 months ago. I told him once I left, I said I may not be back till next winter. It gets so chaotic for me now that I've got Trent hired. Maybe things like that won't happen as often. If I get Trent to where he is capable enough to, you know, that I can trust him to stay here while I'm out and about doing other things, and I'm gonna get the other service truck going. And a lot of these service calls, I mean, I think I want to get him, you know, trained up enough to where he can start doing some of these, you know, we'll start him out on wheel seals and stuff like that, you know, or not, maybe no start issues, things like that, like, you know, a starter swap out or something like that, you know. That's the kind of stuff I want to kind of get him going on. But maybe this week, I see the weather's supposed to finally maybe clear up this week. We'll get a little bit of sunshine. I might go up to Roseburg and get him done. Maybe I'll just, you know, and I realize the fact, I told Trent, I says, I realize the fact that, you know, he turned his hours in for the week and he didn't, hang on, damn it. Okay, that's my wife. Let's see, where was I at here? Make sure I tighten all these up. But yeah, it'd be nice to get Trent lined out on things like that and get him trained. Let's see, I got antifreeze coming out there now. Actually, before I do that, let's put this ear back on here. Like that. Remember, it should be a little ear sticking off the back of the VGT actuator that you put the bolt through. All me and the wife are trying to figure out the, you know, the bill on that transmission valve on that pickup, and it was just, I get to feeling guilty when I see a bill and I go, man, that just seems like that's too much, you know, for what we did. Some of that stuff. Then the first thing that people say, if you put a reman in there, it'd have been cheaper. Maybe it would have been cheaper. I'm sorry. I just have this thing where I don't feel like I'm much of a mechanic if I just go diagnose something and go, well, you need a reman transmission. I'm gonna just swap it out and make big money off of it and mark it up, and that's. I just don't think you're much of a mechanic if you're just a parts. You just swap out whole components. That's all you do. I mean, I'm sorry. I just don't do that. It's just any monkey in the world, I think, is capable of doing that. And that's just not I'm not going to do it. And if people want that, then go somewhere else. You're more than welcome to go somewhere else. Let's see here. Why am I having so much trouble here? Things aren't lining up kind of where they were. I mean, if the circuit breaker in your house goes bad, you go flip the breaker. You don't change the whole fuse panel out. I mean, I guess if it burned up the sockets in it or something, maybe. But You get what I'm saying? I mean, that's the mentality of most people now. You know, oh, my engine had a misfire on it. I got a bad spark plug. I'm gonna go get a reman engine and stick in it. Okay. It doesn't make any sense. People have just become so apathetic and lazy, and all they're concerned about is money. That's it. Money is the only thing that matters to them. Not actually doing the job and actually knowing what you're doing and knowing how the system works. You know, you can't get them to go read a theory of operation on a piece of machinery and actually learn how it works. That might actually take some time away from playing video games or something. I'm sorry, I'm bitching, but it's just the truth. I mean, you can see with our, it's just, I don't know. I was explaining to one of my buddies the other night. You can see the mentality of the people that inhabit the country you live in just by the way they drive down the highway. Really. I remember years ago, this same trip that I make every day, 10 years ago. Man, I'm having a hell of a time here. 10 years ago, I could probably count once a month, maybe twice a month, that I would have to remind somebody coming at me on the highway to dim their lights. I'm not kidding you. A 30-mile stretch at home at night, I bet it's 4 times a day now that I have to high beam these stupid fuckers and tell them to dim their lights. And half of them, you'll high beam them and they still won't dim them. You know? And the other thing that constantly happens is they're constantly running up on behind you with their bright lights on. They won't even dim them when they're behind you. And it just kind of shows you the mentality of the people that inhabit the country now. I mean, they just don't give a shit about nobody. And I don't know. Alright, so now what we got to do, you know what? I took that bolt and put it in the shop because I moved this tractor out of the way the other day. Let's see if I can have my hand up in here to grab that actual turbo linkage and get it pop back up in there. How the hell did I get that off of there? Oh, something like that, huh? Yeah, I gotta get the bolts, the Allen head bolt, and tighten it down. And then some of these you gotta calibrate them with a laptop. Sometimes you can get away with it. I gotta get a zip tie around the plug right here on that little grommet. And we'll fire it up and see what happens. Alright, let's see what we got here. Probably gonna have some codes pop up. I haven't got the controller in it yet, so you may not see that controller and have a communication fault, more than likely. Something happened to the display there, got knocked out of it somehow. What the hell? Why is there water in here? Is that roof leaking somewhere? Why is that? That damn roof's leaking on this tractor. Or that window seal or something's leaking there and leaking down into the cab. Now we should hear the VGT turbo cycle when we turn the key on. There it goes. Yep, it cycled. Let's push that. Communication, alright. Okay. I don't want to see any engine system faults pop up. I knew that was going to come. Get the fan to shut off. There it goes. think we can safely probably say we got that fixed. So it's just, when you turn the keys on, you should have heard that VGT actuator cycle. I'm gonna put the camera over here just to show you what I'm talking about. I'm gonna leave the key off. I'll put this by the actuator, and you should see this linkage cycle. What it does, every time you cycle the key, it's gonna do a travel test on its own. The ECU is gonna do a travel test. Okay, so thought I'd show you that. So if you don't hear that thing cycle and turn clunk on clunk, you know, when you turn the key on, just get out here and go like this right here. Just walk up to the side of it. It's a nice thing about a John Deere is all this is external. Just go like that. That should go all the way up and return on its own. If it don't move, then you need to take this bolt out and see if the turbo moves. If the turbo didn't move, then the VGT, the unison rings, seized up in the turbo, which is fixable too without replacing the whole turbo. But anyway, let's put the controller in it. Alright, so you got all your controllers, well, not all of them. There's a couple controllers in front of this bulkhead in the cab, but the one we're after is back here. Come on, wakey wakey. I think those are just slotted holes, and I can just loosen that. I probably could have loosened all of them instead of taking them clear out. And then we're gonna need a Phillips screwdriver and the new controller, because Marco came and pulled that one out and stuck it in the one that had the original bad controller in it. This is actually the tractor that, so this one here just had a VGT actuator that went bad, and the other one had the hitch controller, so they needed at least 2 tractors to keep going over there. And so I told Marco, I said, just go take the controller out of the one with the bad VGT actuator that's at the shop and take that controller. Sometimes you can get away with that. ECU controllers you can't, because they're basically VIN locked for the tractor. So if it sees a mismatch on one of the other controllers for the VIN, it's not going to let you do that. Okay, Marco did a good job there, and was trying to protect the plug-ins. And this is your engine controller. I think this one back here is, I'm trying to remember which one that one is. That one's the VCU, the vehicle controller. And I think there's a couple more up there. There's one here. This is a steering controller. So there's 1, 2, 3, and I know there's at least two in there. There's 5 different computers that are on this tractor. And this is an older tractor. This ain't even a very new tractor anymore. Now when you get into the R series, then you just, yeah, I mean, it even gets worse. There's tons and tons of controllers on them. Basically, these controllers come from Deere blank, and you got to have the payloads. What John Deere calls the payloads, Cummins calls it a, you know, an in-cal file, which is the calibration file, but it's basically just a calibration file that puts all the information on the ECU or whatever controller you're doing there. So John Deere's made it to where the dealer has to do that and put the payloads in there, you know, because they got to get their cut on the deal. Not if they weren't already getting their cut by selling you a $2,000 controller, but plug them in. That's the top one. The middle plug's a bigger plug. It's got more pins on it than the top and bottom. The top and bottom have the same amount of plugs on them. Why is that not going in there the way it ought to go? Something ain't right. I'm having trouble not bending a pin over in my new controller, am I? Let's try this again. The rubber's probably dry. Okay, there it goes. She's locked into place now. Alright. Okay. So much for that. And now it's up to them to program it. We'll check out our communication faults. Okay, I gotta climb off here without busting my ass. I don't like, the older I get, the less I like jumping off stuff. Climb off of it. I gotta put those bolts in there, but let's just see if any of the communication faults went away. I know that these tractors here, okay, you can buy a tractor that's Green Star ready, as you'll see the sticker on the door. What that means is the ICU, you'll have a steering angle sensor on the 7830s, like the 7530s and 7430s. The steering angle sensor's on the right front knuckle. On the 7830s, it's on the left front knuckle. But the controller for Green Star will be ready to go. You'll be lacking the monitor, and you'll be lacking the actual roof array, which would be mounted right where that bracket is. That's what it means to be Green Star ready. So what was happening, these tractors had the steering angle sensors on them, and they kept throwing codes, and the guy be bailing with it, and he doesn't have Green Star. So they called me, and I said, well, you don't have Green Star. Just pull the fuses out of the controller for the Green Star, for the, you know, and I said, when you turn the key on, it's going to throw the code, you acknowledge it, and then it only does it one time instead of constantly going off every time you turn, because the steering angle sensor is bad for a system you don't even have. So we're going to have a, yep, see, it's going to throw that because it's basically an empty 62812, needs to be programmed. And then there's the one. So all those codes there, one of them is going to be for the steering controller, and the other is going to be because that controller back there has no software installed on it. So yeah, it's not liking that new controller on there. That's okay. Get that controller programmed and it'll be good to go. Okay, well, I'm gonna put the bolts back in this back cover here, and then I'll tell Marco he can probably just come get it and take it over to their shop, and then the John Deere guy can come over with his laptop and program this HCU controller, and then this one will be done. So anyhow, thanks for watching.